When I say Buffalo, New York, what comes to mind? This and this, right? But I doubt that this guy, Frank Lloyd Wright, pops into your head. However, it is one of the most significant places in his early career, has a number of his structures you can visit, and is home to a particular treasure that's one of the finest examples of Wright's design. In this video, I'll take you to the numerous Frank Lloyd Wright design sites across Buffalo, explore the history behind them, the genius of their design, and see how the city remains a living museum of his architectural legacy. Whether you're an architecture buff or just curious, you're about to see Buffalo through the eyes of one of America's greatest architects. The primary reason why Frank Lloyd Wright is connected to Buffalo is because of the Larkin Company, a long ago bankrupted firm which began here in the mid-1800s as a small soap manufacturer and later grew into a mail-order giant. Some of its executives, Darwin D. Martin, William R. Heath, and Walter V. Davidson, became Wright's patrons, commissioning homes that would help define Wright's Prairie School style. Wright also designed the Larkin Administration Building, a landmark of modern corporate architecture, which was demolished in 1950 after the demise of its namesake company. So let's take a tour of Wright's Buffalo. By the way, check the description for the whole itinerary with addresses, visit timing, and costs. A place that you might not immediately think is a logical starting point is a building not even designed by Wright. Louis Sullivan's Guaranty building in downtown Buffalo. Frank Lloyd Wright apprenticed under Louis Sullivan and often referred to him as Liebermeister, or his dear master. The time Wright spent working in Sullivan's Chicago office helped shape the way he thought about architecture. Sullivan's famous idea that form follows function and his push for a uniquely American style stuck with Wright, who later expanded those ideas into his own organic architecture, where buildings grew naturally from their surroundings. The Guaranty building, completed in 1896, is one of Sullivan's masterpieces. It was one of the first steel frame skyscrapers. Its soaring vertical lines celebrated the building's height, while its intricate terracotta ornamentation honored natural forms. The Guaranty showed how Sullivan's ideas could be both modern and beautiful, and it stands as an example of the vision that inspired Wright's career. There is a free interpretive center at the street level of the building that visitors are welcome to look through during regular business hours. While you're downtown, consider stopping at the Buffalo City Hall. Although it's not Wright-designed, this building, completed in the early 1930s by local architect John Wade, is a striking Art Deco masterpiece. It has a 32-story tower, intricate ornamentation, and powerful geometric forms that embody the city's ambition and civic pride. It's not only one of the finest Art Deco skyscrapers in the United States, but it also offers a free observation deck on the 28th floor, with sweeping views of Lake Erie, the Niagara River, and downtown Buffalo. I'd suggest your next stop be at the Larkin Building Wall, the modest final remnant of Wright's original 1906 Larkin Company corporate headquarters. Although the building itself was demolished less than 50 years after it was completed, the surviving wall, between a bridge and a trash-strewn parking lot, isn't much to behold. But without this former structure, none of the rest of the places we'll see would have ever been built here in Buffalo. Exponentially more impressive than the wall fragment is our next stop, the Darwin D. Martin House complex. It's the crown jewel of Frank Lloyd Wright's work in Buffalo and one of the most important Prairie School residences in America. Built in 1905 for Darwin Martin, a wealthy Larkin Company executive, this house sat at the center of a 6-building estate that included the Barton House, which was home for Martin's sister, a gardener's cottage, a pergola, a greenhouse/conservatory, and a carriage house. Its scale and ambition reflected both Martin's prosperity and the confidence of a young Wright, who was just emerging as a national figure in architecture. The Martin House is the archetype of Wright's prairie ideals. Long horizontal lines, broad overhanging eaves, and open floor plans that blur the boundaries between inside and outside. Nearly 400 art glass windows filter light into shimmering geometric patterns. And Wright designed not only the house itself, but also the furniture, fixtures, and gardens, making the complex a complete work of art. He even described it as a well-nigh perfect composition, a view many scholars still share today. Now I must say, as I walked around and through it, I had to keep reminding myself that this seemingly very modern house just celebrated its 120th birthday. Among the estate's satellite structures, the Barton House was the first building completed by Wright on the site, and was a bit of a proof of concept to show Darwin Martin what Wright could design. This is a more modest residence for Martin's sister and her husband. Although simpler in scale, it showcased the same careful attention to proportion and detail, and you could see the genesis of many of the ideas that were later carried out to perfection in the main house. The gardener's cottage, meanwhile, served as a functional support building, and far more conventional in its design, but it still carried Wright's distinctive touch, with thoughtful design elevating even the humblest spaces. After decades of decline and even partial demolition, the Martin House complex has been painstakingly restored to its original form, allowing visitors to once again experience one of Wright's most ambitious and complete expressions of the prairie style in all its glory. Although it's free to walk around the structures and peek into the windows, the interior of the homes is accessible only by guided tour, and no photographs are allowed inside. I'm really interested in architecture, so I opted to take the longer Martin House Plus tour, which went through every building in the complex. I thought it was wonderfully presented and super interesting. But for a casual visitor, the shorter Martin House tour would be a great introduction to the site. An ideal next stop would be a short visit to the nearby William R. Heath House, completed in 1905 for another Larkin executive. This is currently a private residence and is not available to tour. So if you visit, respect the fact that this is someone's current home, and please don't trespass. The home illustrates Wright's growing reputation in the city, thanks to his work for Darwin Martin and Larkin. And the house is notable for how Wright handled the unusual lot, which was narrow but long. He positioned the house close to the street and expanded it horizontally toward the back, giving the facade a compact and almost fortress-like presence, while still achieving the long, sweeping lines typical of the prairie style. Over the years, the Heath House has been carefully preserved, and it remains one of Buffalo's finest examples of Wright's prairie architecture. Also nearby is the Walter V. Davidson House. This was completed in 1907, a few years after the Martin House, for another Larkin executive. Again, like the Heath House, it is currently a private residence and not available for tours, so please don't trespass or disturb the residents. Although it's not obvious from the street, it sits on a steep slope overlooking the Niagara River and shows Wright's genius in the site-specific design. Strong horizontal lines, broad eaves, and careful integration with the surrounding landscape make this house a more intimate, yet still fully realized expression of the prairie principles. The Davidson House shows how Wright extended his organic philosophy beyond large-scale estates to also smaller and more modest homes for middle-class clients. The next stop is at the nearby Forest Lawn Cemetery. Frank Lloyd Wright designed the Blue Sky Mausoleum at the request of Darwin Martin. Wright and Martin shared a 30-year friendship, and they discussed the Blue Sky Mausoleum in the late 1920s, reflecting Martin's wish to unite his family for eternity at Forest Lawn Cemetery. But it was never built in his lifetime. It was the last of the projects Martin personally commissioned from Wright, including his home complex and the Larkin headquarters. In 2004, Forest Lawn finally realized the Blue Sky Mausoleum while working with an architect trained by Wright and drawing from his original plans and notes. Now, interestingly enough, there's still crypts available for sale in the mausoleum. So if you've ever wished to be buried in a work by Frank Lloyd Wright, this is likely your only chance. The lovely and historic cemetery can be visited most days, and the Blue Sky Mausoleum is located on the south side of the cemetery, closest to Delavan Avenue. Finally, conclude your tour of Wright's Buffalo designs at the Fontana Boathouse on the Black Rock Canal. Originally, this was designed by Wright in 1905 for the University of Wisconsin rowing team, but the students at the time couldn't raise enough funds to build it, so it wasn't constructed. Fast forward over a century to 2007, and Buffalo revived the design and constructed the boathouse exactly to Wright's plans, with its long horizontal lines, dramatic roof lines, and exposed wooden trusses. It captures both the rhythm of rowing and the elegance of prairie design. Today, it serves as a working boathouse and a unique architectural landmark celebrating Wright's vision. Now, when I visited, the boathouse wasn't open and no one was actively rowing, so I just viewed it from the outside. There's also a modern reconstruction of a Frank Lloyd Wright designed gas station at the Buffalo Transportation Pierce Arrow Museum close to downtown. But unfortunately, I didn't have an opportunity to visit. If you haven't completely overdosed on Frank Lloyd Wright and you have the time to drive about 30 minutes south of Buffalo, consider visiting Graycliff, the stunning Wright-designed summer estate built on the shores of Lake Erie in the 1920s, also for the Martin family. If you're interested, I have a separate video dedicated just to Graycliff. The link is in the description. Taken together, these sites, corporate, residential, recreational, and even funerary, tell the story of Buffalo as one of the most important cities in Wright's career, and the city remains a living showcase of his designs. Add visits to these architectural treasures to a Bills game and a plate of wings, and you've got yourself a perfect Buffalo weekend. Thanks for tuning in. A subscribe is sincerely appreciated and helps me to continue the channel.